Hello, parents. My name is Mr. Nolan. I'm going to be your child's history teacher this year. A couple of my classes will also have the help of Miss Tate. This is my Twitter handle. If you are a Twitter person, that will be history only information coming out on that. And then the email address right there is the best way to get in touch with me. So if you need to reach out to me in the middle of the day, if you need to get in touch with me quickly, believe it or not, the email is the fastest way to do it. All right, so um, devices, just so you guys know, we are going to use devices in class for lessons from time to time. I will make sure everyone is well aware of these times ahead of it, in advance, so confusion, your kids will know. So there are going to be times when it's okay to bring them in. The students know that the only times they are to have their devices out during class are those times where I have let them know that they're supposed to have them. Otherwise, I will be taking them and turning them into security per Patriot High School policy. If your children have a need to play with their phones and they can't resist the temptation to use it, I do have a secure place in the classroom where they can put their phones to keep them away from them without penalty of them being confiscated. Supplies. I just need each student to have 2 sections in a 3-ring binder somewhere, one for unit packets, one for graded assessments. However they go about organizing themselves after that is up to them. A writing utensil is generally helpful. Colored pencils are good on map days, and then the biggie here, YouTube access. Confusion and YouTube throughout the year. Grading. Grading's going to be a little different. You guys are probably used to seeing. We have 3 categories in this class. Summative 1s are 70%, summative 2s are 20%, formative assessments will be 10% of the grade. And just to give you a little more of a clue as to what is what, formative stands for forming. So it's part of the learning process. So it's assessments that I give your children while they are still learning new material or new concepts and skills. So it's meant to help them along that process. Think of it like trial and error. So I like to not have it counting for a whole lot because formative assessments, they're not supposed to do well on. The first time you learn a brand new skill and we grade it just to give you some feedback so that your kids can make adjustments and correct it and do better, they shouldn't do well. They're not supposed to. So I don't like it to count for very much. Now, summative assessments, think of it as a summary of what they know. It's after they're supposed to have learned and practiced a skill and gotten good at it. So summative assessments are at the end of the learning process. All right? And now how those summative assessments are broken down. Summative 2 assessments are going to be 1 time per quarter. We're going to have a quarter assessment. It'll be at the end of the quarter. I can tell you right now, the first quarter summative 2 assessment is slated to be on October 27th and 28th, depending upon what block your child has. That will be 1 sit down, 1 test. It'll count as 20% of their grade. It's meant to mimic the SOL. We will stop at the end of each quarter and review for a couple of days before. It's going to be multiple choice. Your children should do very, very well. It's possible that the 4th quarter one will end up being a project that occurs after the SOL, but this is to get your kids used to sitting for a 80 to 85 minute test and focusing for 60 multiple choice questions like they'll have to do in early May. The summative 1 assessments are actually going to be smaller. They're going to focus on 2 to 3 standards. It might be a vocabulary assessment. It might be a map assessment. If you guys want to think about how you might know this, think of it as quiz-sized things. In previous years, this is my 4th year teaching Freshman World History 1, I have found that it creates a lot of stress for students having to study for these big, massive tests. Like, for example, Rome is supposed to be 1 unit with 1 big assessment at the end of it in the 2nd quarter. Well, the Roman history that we study over the course of 5 weeks is 1,000 years of history. There's the Roman Republic, its whole structure of government. We talk about Roman expansion and how that eventually leads to Julius Caesar, the Roman Civil War, which eventually leads into the Roman Republic, and the Pax Romana and all the advances and growth of Rome during that time period. Also included in that unit is this thing called Christianity, which comes around during the Pax Romana. and how early Christians impact with the Roman Empire. Then we talk about the interaction between the two, Constantine making it legal, and then eventually the downfall of the Roman Empire. All of that is supposed to fit into one test. Personally, I feel that that is a lot to ask a student to be responsible for. I have done it in previous years, and the results have never been spectacular. So we're going to try this year breaking these summative one assessments into smaller things that focus on 2 or 3 standards. That way, instead of having to study for a massive test that covers 8 to 10 standards and 1,000 years of history, your children only have to focus on studying for something that's a little bit smaller. I'm hoping to ease the anxiety burden on them while allowing them to do better. And the other thing too is in previous years when I'd done summative one being those giant tests, we would have 3 a quarter. So 60% of a kid's grade would be made up on 3 tests. Well, that's not how it's going to be this year. This year we have 70% of summative one, and we're going to have 10 to 13 of those assignments every quarter. So they can have a bad one, and it's not going to totally torpedo their grade. So I've taken a little bit of time on this because this is very different than what you're probably used to seeing. So we're going to have these summative one assessments every 2 or 3 class periods once we get really rolling. So we're going to have them very frequently, but they're going to be smaller. It's going to be more manageable for your kids. Retakes. Now retakes are going to be available on those summative one assessments. So those smaller quizzes will be retakeable. The summative two at the end of the quarter, unfortunately, will not be. Now, you see here it says on any standards. When I give a summative one assessment and it's on 3 standards, or I'll use one that's going to come later on this month. It'll be on standards 2B and 2C, which is Paleolithic and Neolithic man. So there will be those 2 standards on there. If your kid gets a 70 on it, but they got a 90 on Paleolithic man and they got a 50 on Neolithic man, when they go to do the retake, I'm not going to make them retake the entire assessment. They're just going to redo the part that they did poorly on, so that way they're focusing on areas where they were weak or areas where they struggled. Okay, this is a very standards-based grading thing that I have and do. It also minimizes how much they have to study for a retake. So instead of having to study 3 or 4 different things, including something they already did well, they just have to correct and do the portions that they struggled with. Now I've got a couple of things that they have to do before getting to take a retake. First off, there's going to be a deadline. There's going to be a limited amount of time for them to get a retake done in. Because these are smaller, it's going to be 10 to 14 days. When I hand an assessment back to your students, it will get posted to Fusion what the retake deadline is, and it will be told to them. So they will know how long they have to get it done. The reason I'm doing this deadline is a little bit for my own sanity and a lot of it for your kids. We keep moving, whether they need to retake an assessment or not. So if they spend too long focusing on retaking an assessment, they fall behind in the class. And I've seen this snowball terribly for students over my time at Patriot. Students who got hung up on an early September or October assessment and kept trying to retake it and retake it and retake it. And it's January and they're still trying to redo this early October assessment. And they've failed everything in the meantime. So now they're 4 months behind in the class and it's January and it's at that point in time problematic to get caught up. So I want them to do the retakes. I really, really do. I want them to do them in a timely manner for their own sake so they don't fall behind. The second thing that your children will have to do to earn a retake is that they're going to have to complete an error analysis form. Essentially, they're going to have to correct what they did wrong. So if it's a multiple choice question, they'll have to find the right answer, and they'll have to give me a source where they found the right answer, whether that be the internet, a textbook, a video, some proof to me that they have looked up the right answer and they understand why it's the right answer now. If it was a identification, there will be questions about what they were supposed to identify. This is to help them remediate their knowledge, to make sure that when they take this assessment the second time, they have an understanding of the material that was better than when they took it the first time. I'll come back to this third thing here in a second. These other ones are a little bit simple. 4, I'm going to ask that a parent signs the original assessment. I want to make sure that the students are being open with you guys about how they're doing in my class so that there are no surprises with grades. Obviously, Parent Portal is a wonderful tool, but I understand that sometimes it doesn't update properly, and sometimes you guys are too busy to check it. I want to make sure your kids are communicating with you about how they're doing in my class. So I ask that before they retake an assessment, You guys sign the original one, and I see that signature so that I know that they're communicating with you. And the other one, I just don't want them to do corrections and then immediately turn around and take the retake. So if they do like corrections during flex in the morning and they retake in the afternoon, that's fine. I just don't want them. I just corrected it. I have it all memorized right now. Let me retake it right now while it's still fresh in my head. I want to make sure that when they do that retake that this is knowledge that they have completely soaked up at this point in time so that they will remember it 6 months from now. And then the other one here in the middle that I paused on, and this is different from me, and it's kind of a big one. All assignments that are part of that assessment have to be completed on the day it's taken. So, and I've used this example with your students. Our first summative one assessment will be either September 15th or 16th, depending upon what date they are. That's going to be on this Unit 1, the writing unit that we are doing currently. So on that day, when your kids come in and they're going to sit down to take this summative one assessment, they're going to hand me their unit packets. And I'm going to check off everything that they've done so far. If they have all of the assignments completed, and by assignments, I'm really just referring to the notes. If they have all of their notes done, then they will be eligible for the retake. If they go sit down and take that summative assessment and not all of the notes are done, they've already lost the privilege to do a retake. I'm going to get into the flipped classroom aspect of this here in a second, but the biggest thing with this is because the notes are going to be done at home, they have to get the notes done. Taking a summative assessment when you haven't done the notes yet is a waste of everyone's time. So this caveat, this condition is here because I need them to be staying caught up on the notes. I need them to get them done in a timely manner. So that is my retake policy. It'll be relayed to the kids and reiterated multiple times throughout the year, just so it's clear. And as I hinted at, this class is going to be taught as what's known as a flipped classroom. And in a traditional classroom, and especially in a history traditional classroom, a teacher will stand up in front of the students and he will deliver the material, which is a dressed up fun way of saying lecture. So lecture for 45 minutes, the kids will take some notes. Everyone will generally be bored unless the teacher has a sense of humor and can interject some jokes from time to time. There's very little two-way. There's a couple of questions the kids will ask, but generally that's exactly what it is. It's a one-way delivery of material. And then the kids go home. We ask them to outline an essay or do a worksheet about a primary document and then come back. That's a traditional classroom. I am going to turn that around this year. And I think in the long run, it will be a lot more enjoyable for your kids. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment to the beginning. I'm going to turn that around, just very much like you are doing right now, watching this video with all this information. This is one-way communication right now. I want all of the one-way to communication to occur at home. So your students are going to be responsible for completing their notes outside of class. That will be their homework. There will be videos posted to YouTube exactly like this video, except they will be a little bit shorter. They'll be 7 to 12 minutes long, and the kids will have notes to go with them. Their responsibility at home is to make sure those notes get done, because then when they come into class, we will work on activities where they learn how to analyze primary documents, where they learn how to work with sources, where we help them develop better writing skills. That's one of my big goals this year, is to help them develop as writers. These are all things that need to be done in class where I can directly support them, where if they have a question, I can answer it, where they can work in groups and it allows them to grow more. So the one-way communication that is note-taking is going to occur at home. The two-way stuff, or having myself, or having Miss Tate, or having the people at your table, their groups sit with them as a resource, can be incredibly helpful, is going to occur in class. That's the purpose to a flipped classroom. Now, to do this, it is imperative that your children get in the habit of watching the video. I might not be the only class that they're doing this in. I know some of the math classes are doing it as well, and some of the science teachers are toying around with the idea of it. So they absolutely have to watch these videos. If your child does not have a way to watch them at home, whether it's a device, smart TV, the internet, on your computer, if they don't have some way to access YouTube and watch these videos every other night, please communicate that with me, and we will come up with a way or a plan for them, whether it's them going to the library, whether it's them coming to me during Flex and watching them in my Flex classes, or I believe Mr. Grimsland and I, Mr. Grimsland's another World History 1 teacher, he and I will be making the videos. I believe that he and I are planning right now, and we haven't locked the scheduling yet, to have a couple of days a week where one of these videos will play at 7, 10 in the morning once the kids are off the buses. We are going to have ways for kids with limited internet access to do these. I need people who have that issue to communicate with me promptly so that we can devise a plan for them. Okay? So the kids will absolutely need to be able to do this. This is imperative. It's what I was suggesting earlier with the notes. If they haven't watched the videos, if they haven't gotten the notes, taking a summative assessment is a giant waste of everyone's time. So I cannot overemphasize how important it is that your children get in the habit of watching these videos. Now, during the writing unit, this first unit, we are actually going to watch the videos in class. So I'm making videos for our notes, and I'm playing them during class. I'm showing kids how to pause them, when to pause so that they can write notes down, when to just focus on explanations that are occurring. So we have been going over this in class, and we will continue for this entire unit. I'm helping them learn how to do this because, believe it or not, using YouTube is a skill that they have to practice a little bit because they probably haven't necessarily used it the way I'm asking them to. So we are going to put training wheels on them here for the next couple of weeks and help them with the process. Homework, as I was saying, they're going to have homework just about every night, but the difference is it's not going to be traditional homework. It's going to be watching these videos and taking these notes. I have told all of your children, and I'm really not kidding when I say this, they could probably do these on a smartphone riding the bus home. It's entirely possible they could do that unless they live in Braemar and have a 2-minute bus ride. But most of the communities with longer bus trips, they could do it on the bus while riding home. So they are going to have homework most nights. Extra help, my office hours are Thursday afternoons from 2:15 to 3 p.m. I am off during 3rd and 6th periods, so flex 3 and 6. I don't have any students with me for one-on-one help. They are always more than welcome to flex into a class when I have students to complete retakes, notes, anything like that. Generally, that's what I use flex time for. Flex for me is a chance to get caught up, to watch videos that haven't been watched, to complete missed work, or to retake assessments. So that is what we will always be doing in Flex. Kids will need to sign up for after school. In the side wall of the classroom, there will be a little sign up there just because I need to know ahead of time and I want them to get used to beginning with the end of mind and planning ahead. Okay, I'm going to see Mr. Nolan Thursday, so I've got that Thursday. So if I need to go see my math teacher on Tuesday, I've got that Tuesday. I want them to start thinking that way and organizing their lives. It's a life skill that they need to have. We're going to start that. And the other thing is by appointment. If the times that I've just described don't necessarily work, I understand that. Kids are busy. You guys are responsible for their rides as freshmen. They can't drive themselves. They have after-school activities. I get it. I absolutely get it. So they will, if they have an issue and they need to see me and a time I've described doesn't work, just have them come talk to me. I'm around the building a lot. I announce most of our fall and winter sports, so I'm very rarely bolting out the door at 2 o'clock. I'm usually there until 8 or 9 at night. So please just come up, have them come up to me, and we will find some way to communicate, some way to make something work where I can get them help. Makeup work, they will have a calendar on the front of their unit packets, which will always tell them what they were doing. So if they're homesick, they know what they've missed. Obviously, if they're in the hospital, I'm not asking them to do work. I understand being sick. But if they're out and they can at all find any way to get their work done so that they fall slightly less behind while they're out sick and getting better, then please, please, please help them do that. I have seen before at Patriot High School where a kid missed 3 days with strep throat, and it took them 3 weeks to get caught back up. Because with 7 classes, that's a lot of work in 3 days. By all means, when your kids are sick, keep them home. I understand that completely. I appreciate that you don't want them to, you want them to get better, and you don't want them to spread it to other people. I get that. But please, if they are sick and feeling okay while they're homesick, try and push them to get some of their makeup work done. They will always know what's going on in my class, and because I post everything to Fusion and the internet, they will always be able to make up just about everything short of assessments while they're home. On Twitter, I will post assignments and video reminders between 5 and 10 p.m. every night on that history Twitter account. I'm not going to follow your kids back for obvious reasons, so they will have that. You guys can feel free to follow me as well. And then Remind 101, I had your children sign up for this the first 2 days of school. The sign up information is on the Fusion page except for first period because we're having Fusion page issues with that class. The sign up is on Fusion, so please feel free to sign up. A text message reminder, I usually time them to go out at 4:30, so you and your kids have plenty of time to study or complete whatever assignments, and a reminder will go out at 4:30. It will include what video they're responsible for and what assessments might occur the next day. Those are some of the best ways to keep constant information. Also, my Fusion page is very up to date. I will have the calendar set up. You will get spammed with reminders of upcoming events. I'm apologizing for that now, but I'm really actually not sorry about it. So there's that. And lastly, please bring your questions to back to school night. You are going to have a quiz on this presentation when you walk in, very much like your kids will when we start having the fully flipped classrooms here in a couple of weeks. So we will do that quickly at the beginning of our 11 minutes together on back to school night, and then I will take the rest of the time to answer your questions because I am sure there will be many. I thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I look forward to meeting you guys on Wednesday night.